Today we hear the age-old challenge offered by Christ. Don't just be a good person and love your neighbor, for anyone can see that this is obvious for the good of society, the good of our own well-being, and with relatively little effort, even follow it. But to love God. These two commandments are not exclusive of each other. Love of God and love of neighbor go hand in hand. Otherwise, like last week as we heard, we create a great divorce, an unnatural reality in which we as humans, who are created as God's divine reflection, try to live contrary to who we are, or in a word, to live inhumanely. If we only respect our neighbor, we are no different than animals. No different than animals that live together in a society, in harmony with each other. But if, however, we live like humans, then God reigns supreme. And He alone dictates our thoughts, words, and deeds. And fittingly, as we hear, rewards us in abundance. I've had people tell me that they've never heard God calling them and ask, what should I do? How can I follow a God I can't hear? My challenge to them usually, and to all of us this evening, is the challenge that Christ gives to us. Get rid of the not Jesus in your life and follow Him. The young man today in our story had made money his God. He was a good guy. He never lied or stole or murdered. Heck, he thought he was probably pretty virtuous. And I'm sure he went up to Jesus to be affirmed in his life, to have Christ tell him just how great a person he was. But Jesus says, it isn't enough. Love me as well. And not just as much as you love everyone else, but more. So many people today think that they're going to heaven because they haven't lied or stole or murdered anybody. Yet they don't keep the Lord's day holy. They curse and blaspheme His name regularly in speech and action. And they put hope in false gods, superstition, luck, mojo, whatever you want to call it. We believe that if we can adhere to commandments 4 through 10, we're okay, but those first 3, we could just push to the side and forget about. Not to mention that perhaps our observance of those commandments 4 through 10 are probably not being observed quite as devoutly as we think if we've divorced ourselves from God in the first 3 commandments. But it does make us feel better to lump all sin into the big ones of lying, stealing, murder as the litmus test for our own personal culpability. St. Paul today speaks of the Word of God not only being alive, but sharper and more powerful than a sword. The Word is truth. For the Word is God. As St. John says, it's the Word of the Father that was made flesh, who is the person of the Son, the way, the truth, the life. The gospel isn't true because we agree with it or even like it. It is true because it is truth itself. This is why the teachings don't change with parliamentary votes or the passage of time, to quote Pope Francis's remarks last Sunday at the opening of the Synod on the family. Truth is unchanging. Just as there is one God in three persons, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, it's not a matter of conversation. It's not a matter of vote. It's not a matter of conservative, liberal, progressive, libertarian. Truth just is. The writer of the Book of Wisdom speaks of the reality of this truth made known to us in the spirit of wisdom that all of us receive at baptism and is fulfilled within us in confirmation. If we are truly desiring it, that knowledge of God, wisdom, is more valuable than all the wealth, all the gold in the world. However, if God is secondary or tertiary or not even on our list, then it has no value. Rather, like the rich young man, we hoard our earthly riches in sadness, because the peace and joy of eternity, fully contained in that spirit of knowledge and love of God, that spirit of wisdom, eludes us, escapes us. And in our own blindness, our own deafness, and our own hardness of heart, we have only sorrow. The parable of the rich young man gives a stern warning to all of us. Don't let money come between you and God. But the lesson goes deeper than all of that. Don't let anything or anyone come between you and God. If we fill that place within us reserved by God, who created us from the moment of our very creation to be fulfilled by Him with something or anything else, we will never be happy. I've never heard anyone come into confession happy about their past sins and the fulfillment it brought into their lives. Everyone, myself included, gets lured by that trap, the lure of happiness that their sin will bring. This thing, sloth, avarice, greed, pride, gluttony, lust, blasphemy. And all the while, it may bring a fleeting pleasure, a fleeting bit of joy into our lives, but never happiness. St. Paul says, no creature is concealed from Him, but everything is naked and exposed to the eyes of Him to whom they must render an account. God is where we will find happiness. If we tried to hide or mask ourselves, thinking back to Adam and Eve in the garden, after their sin, what do? They cover their nakedness. They hide from God. If we too try to hide from God, it's useless, it's futile. He sees us as we are. He sees our brokenness, but He also sees our hearts longing for Him. The rich young man was stripped down, not on the outside, but on the inside, at his heart, by Jesus, who saw what was that thing that stood between him and God and the happiness that comes with that. He can do the same for all of us as well. As we continue with this Mass, don't just go through the motions. Pray the prayers. Listen to the words the priest prays, speaking in the person of Christ. In persona Christi capitis, the Church teaches us. In the person of Christ the head. Let your guard down. And let Him fill that spot reserved for Him and Him alone. If there's something there that requires confession before going to communion, then don't be like the young man and just go away sad and don't do anything about it. Pray for grace. Go to Him. Get rid of it. Open your heart to He who wants you to come to him. God cannot be deceived. We can't hide from him. We can't mask our sin. Everything is naked and exposed in the face of truth. The challenge for us all is exactly that, a challenge. But if we let go and let God, as the saying goes, as Jesus himself says, all things are possible. Are you struggling in your marriage? Let go and let God. Are you struggling with your children? Let go and let God. Are you struggling with your career? Let go and let God. Are you struggling with your faith, your trust, your hope in God? Let go and let God take over. Jesus' sole condition to eternal happiness is 2 words: follow me. What do you have to let go of so that you and all of us can follow him both now and forever?